What up, Donald? How are you, buddy? Yo, I need more Sam Cedar videos. I need more libertarian videos. Every time I do a search on YouTube, it's like all the same stuff I think we've heard before. I need good ones. I need more. I need more. More crack. Hey, what's up, Manila Gamer? What did they add? What is new? Is it better than Fortnite? Is it better than Fortnite? Fuck. Okay. We are officially on the internet. It is official. We are on the internet. Armor personal carrier. Okay, I don't know what that is. So like something to carry your personal armor carrier, I guess. Attack helicopters. In the desert, you go. That's pretty cool. Attack helicopters, explosive gas cans. That's pretty nuts. You just like blow up a freaking helicopter. Dude, Politicon totally called out Steven Crowder. Holy shit. I don't know how he can recover from this. How does he recover? Renaming your clan. What is your clan now? What is your clan name now? Alright, let's see. We are going to... I have a few more... I have a few more Sam videos. Let me see. Nope, not this one. Let's see. I kind of want to watch this one where he analyzes Jordan Peterson's appearance on Joe Rogan. Or Sam Cedar on the Libertarian Peter Schiff show. I think we'll start with that. Let's start with that. And then versus wealthy Forbes listed plutocrat. Get rid of this. Okay. I think that's what we'll do for tonight. Yeah, Crowder's gonna... This is what Crowder's gonna do in response. He's going to go and debate college kids. And be like, should I debate the older man? Should I ignore my daddy? Okay, so this is Sam Cedar on the Libertarian Peter Schiff show. Got like 400 dislikes to 500 likes. Interesting.
Let's go to this. This was me on the Peter Schiff show today. I wasn't sure I was going to run this, but it was actually pretty good. We were thinking about making it members only, but Matt was like, no, it's too fun. People will enjoy it. Next one we'll make for members only.
Audio's okay, guys?
Which is, that's the way, guys like me who like to posthumously convert you. I'm trying to convert you now that you're alive to a member.
Oh, he was working on tanks and armored personal carriers? That's pretty crazy.
You'll actually have to take the final step.
I'm sure he'll play PUBG and be like,
here is the interview. Now, the interesting thing about this is that
all right, let's get started.
Peter Schiff is arguing from a libertarian perspective. Now, I think philosophically you could argue that this is another government mandate and our freedom is inhibited in some way, but he doesn't. You could argue that. I don't see it. But what he takes this argument into a place that essentially is a data argument. And unfortunately for Peter, he does not have the data. He's incorrect. And I will go into this more deeply in the post show, exactly what the data says. But you should know, listen, remember, it's a radio interview, so going into the weeds is not necessarily in the best interest of anybody. But apparently talking over each other is, which, it's radio. Okay, here it is.
We now return to the Peter Schiff Show. Call in now, 855-4-SHIFT. That's 855-472-4433. Rebel Radio, the Peter Schiff Show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Peter Schiff here at SchiffRadio.com. Joining the show right now is Sam Seder, who is a comedian, writer, actor, talk radio host, film director, TV producer. Been wearing a lot of hats. He's also an occasional guest host on Countdown with Keith Olbermann. He's the co-host of the nationally syndicated progressive radio interview program Ring of Fire. He co-hosted by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Florida-based attorney Mike Papantonio. He's also co-hosted along with Janine Garofalo on-air American Radio's The Majority Report. Needless to say, we're probably going to have a bit of a debate here. Sam, welcome to the Peter Schiff Show.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Boy, I'll tell you, I'm exhausted just by how much stuff I do.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had some time to come on the show. So I think you came on in large part to talk about the Obama, compromise now with respect to the mandate that Catholic churches be required.
Yeah, Sam was on Bob's Burgers, right? Does he play a major character, or did he just do like a one-time thing?
To provide
their actor.
Employees or their female employees with free birth control. I mean, what do you think of the president's position on this issue?
Well, I don't think you characterized his original mandate quite correctly. He didn't say that Catholic churches have to provide their employees. All religious institutions like that are completely exempt, as they've always been. What he said was that if there are institutions that are run that are not primarily in the business of providing religious services, in other words, like a hospital or a school, in those instances, if the institution offers prescription drug care, they cannot deny
he's been a few episodes. That's pretty
frankly,
cool.
Any other
I didn't know that. I know he mentioned it, but I didn't know he was like a major character.
On their own whim. If they offer prescription drugs, they've got to offer that one. I think the compromise...
I think this is okay without it.
The compromise was essentially that the churches or the institutions no longer have to pay for that. That's a deal basically the administration has struck with insurance companies, where the insurance companies will simply provide it so that it won't offend the sensibilities, I guess, of any of the employers.
But of course, the insurance companies are going to have to get the money by charging those institutions more money for the people who do have coverage, because they're not going to provide it for free. So the churches will ultimately be paying for it.
Actually, no. As part of the
directly.
Affordable Care Act, the president, the deal, and the insurance companies will not be passing on those costs. In many instances, frankly, a lot of those insurance companies
how can they
will
prevent
save.
them from doing it? I mean, how can they prevent them from passing on the costs? I don't understand how that's possible.
Hugo,
Well, I think under the
That's kinda
Affordable
funny.
Care Act, that's part of the deal. You know, the insurance company.
let me see this clip.
Welcome to your worst nightmare, Bob, except worse because of all the violations.
Oh my God, that's Sam.
Hugo, has this place even opened yet?
It opens next week. What's your point?
How bad can it be? It looks like a nice place. It's probably just a nice person serving nice food.
Oh, is it nice food, Bob? Is it a nice person serving nice food, Bob?
I don't know how you get through the day, Ron.
What?
Why don't you put your mouth where your mouth is? No matter what happens in there, no matter what you see, no matter what you smell.
What is
eat a
what is
rat
Hugo
at the
debate
end
limit?
of this inspection.
Yeah, I'll eat a wrap. I'll eat the crap out of a wrap.
Okay, after you. Wait, no, you go after me. Ron, get the doors.
Ooh, wow. Real-life health inspectors in my restaurant? Now this is getting real. Now this is getting very real. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name?
Don't worry about him. He's just a guy named Bob. Bob Dork.
That's not my name.
He's not a health inspector.
Thank God.
He just wishes he was. And he doesn't talk.
We're still in the middle of our medium soft practice, kinda, sorta, not really opening.
I've never seen
opening.
this show.
Where do you guys think this plant should go? Here? 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 You don't sound happy. Here? Here?
Yeah, there.
Really?
Or maybe there.
Are you kidding me? We don't care about the plant. Take us to the kitchen. This chicken needs to be stored at 40 degrees or less.
Oh, fun chicken fact. How do you even know that?
Oh, God.
Hold on. When was the last time you washed this rag?
Washed? Are you saying washed the rag?
Oh, God.
There are rodent droppings near your salad prep area.
Oh, that's what those are. Okay, you could just flick them away.
Oh, God.
That's pretty funny. Does a good impression. I thought he would just do like talk normally, but he does a good
And he's
impression.
got a big benefit out of this. They're going to get a lot of
It's
new
just a nice
customers.
place,
And in
Bob.
many instances, the insurance companies end up saving money because it prevents.
I heard it's a
you
good
know,
show.
As you know, there are millions upon millions of women who take birth control, not necessarily as contraceptives, but because it deals with other medical issues that they have. So
Yeah,
in the
although
final
that
analysis,
argument is not going to fly with
Hello,
me.
Holly.
If-
Yeah, that's
if-
kinda crazy.
if
He does a good
insurance
job.
companies believed that they would save money by providing the free birth control, the government wouldn't have to require it. They would do it on their own. The fact that they're not doing it and that the government has to force them to do it means it doesn't save them money. It's going to increase the cost of providing health insurance, and it's just going to make health insurance
well, I think the
more
problem in the
expensive. But,
past,
I think
the problem in the past is the insurance companies, when they're dealing with an institution that has problems with contraception, even though it may be in their best interest to do it, the institutions won't buy that insurance. And so they don't offer it. I mean, so this isn't a situation where necessarily, you know, the insurance companies have an option. They can either save themselves a little money by offering free contraception, or they can get the contract with this institution, and now they don't have to make that choice.
I don't think, you know, I think that the insurance companies, if it saves them money, they would do it. I don't
Yeah,
think
but
the
Peter,
government
if I said to
knows-
you, I'm going to
knows
offer
best.
you a product that is in my best interest, but you have a moral problem with it, you're not going to buy that product, then I'm going to say, okay, fine. You know, I'll eat I'm not going to get those savings on offering free birth control, but I still get your contract. So, you know, they're still working in their best interest there.
Yeah, but you know, again, I would argue that there is not going to be a savings. This is going to increase the cost. And, you know, I think there's a bigger issue here. I understand this issue between separation and church of state, and I don't want to minimize it, but I think it's masking a bigger issue. I don't believe that there is any constitutional authority for the government to mandate anybody provide anything for free.
If I were to carry any weapon in the apocalypse, I do have a samurai sword, but it might break. Machete might be better, or an axe. Probably an axe, a very large axe that I'd be strong enough to carry. Or I could just like tape two swords together and have like a dual blade sword, like a lightsaber, but like a sword. That's using my head.
Free, let alone birth control. Why do I have to provide I have a small company, Euro Pacific Capital. I have over 100 employees. A number of them are women. How can the government tell me that I have to offer insurance to my employees that gives women free contraception? What's the justification
We give free
or the
Viagra to
authorization for the
vets
federal
or
government to
something.
do that?
Well, it's the authorization comes from the Civil Rights Act. If you offer prescription care, and now you can choose not to offer any prescription drugs, and in which case you got no problem. But if you're offering prescription drugs and you're specifically denying a class of people who work for you a drug that is would be helpful to them, then you've got a problem based on the Civil Rights Act.
Well, first of all, you got two problems there. First of all, number one, the prescription drug plan that I have now, there's copays. I mean, you don't get the drugs for free. You just get the drugs
what's
at
up,
a
buddy?
reduced price. This is saying that you have to provide birth control for free. No, so that's different than all the other stuff that I provide. And of course, this is not about civil rights. If a woman wants free birth control and I don't offer it, she can take a job at a company that does offer it. If that's what's important to her.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are
birth control is a lot
25 million
cheaper when you
people.
buy it than when you get it for free from the government.
I don't subscribe to this notion that people can just simply walk away from their jobs and easily find another one. I'm not sure, what's happening over in the world that you live in, but in the world that I live in, people are very fortunate to have jobs. Now, listen, at the end of the day, I would much rather see a Medicare buy-in for all people or a government-sponsored insurance program, because I think this is one of the big problems, is that people's freedom is completely curtailed by the fact that that I need health care, I don't have the option to go and pursue a job that I necessarily like better or offer me better situation because
let me
need that
throw
health
this
care.
out at you. What if I have a female employee and right now she doesn't get any birth control from me, but she spends $500 a year on her contraception? I'm just making up a number. It probably isn't that much, but let's say she spends $500 a year.
Oh, it's definitely $500.
Oh.
It's definitely It's
All right,
over $500.
Murdoch, what weapon would you carry in the apocalypse? My answer was a dual wielding samurai sword. A samurai sword, butts together, sword out. What did Donald say? Donald said he would have a machete. I'm not sure Millennial Gamer has answered. Oh, he would want a AKM with a high powered scope and Jesus, bro, that's so specific. That's so specific. Yeah, those are our answers. What is yours?
Let me finish my point.
Okay.
All right, so let's say she's spending $500 a year, and now
Well,
I
let's say
provide it to her
900,
for free.
okay.
But whatever. Let's just say it's 500. It doesn't matter. So let's say she's spending $500, and I decide that now she's going to get it for free. But because my health insurance premiums now go up, I reduce her pay by $1,000 a year. So now she's earning $1,000 a year less, but she's getting her free birth control. She's worse off because she's getting free birth control because I had to reduce her pay by a lot more than what she used to pay for birth control.
Well, first of all, Peter, I think the preponderance of the evidence is that actually your premiums are not going to go up. And
why wouldn't they?
Well, because
insurance companies are
listen,
gonna
I got
have
news
to-
for you. If I have a car, let's put it just in terms of a car. I can either pay for my oil change, or I can not change my oil, and I'm going to have much bigger problems down the road. I mean, that's what.
Yeah,
that,
but auto
that's what we
insurance.
know.
Auto
That's,
insurance.
I'm not talking
there
about
is-
insurance.
there
I'm
isn't
simply
an auto
talking about
insurance
the
policy
idea
that covers
of
your oil
maintenance.
change.
Of maintenance, preventative care saves money for insurance companies down the road. Any actuarial will
Hold
tell
on,
you
you're
this.
missing the point. Sam, there isn't an auto insurance company in existence that covers an oil change. Right, so
I'm not
so
talking.
If what you're saying is
I'm
true,
talking. All right,
why
but
aren't
listen,
the insurance companies
you're
giving
getting
free
caught
oil
up in
changes
the-
with their premiums?
Well, let me put it this way: if you get regular checkups, you're going to save an insurance company money because down the road, every insurance company will tell you that preventative care is better than waiting for a problem to get
Then
worse.
answer my question: why don't insurance policies come with free oil changes?
Why don't car insurance?
What? Yes.
Well,
if
car
it
insurance
saves the money, why
don't
don't they
cover.
provide it for free?
But in fact, health insurance companies do encourage wellness programs. They do institute this.
Yes,
they do
but not
give you
for-
free,
if-
and they do.
Yeah,
And-
but
and-
if they're not doing it now, and the government is forcing them to do something, it's because it doesn't lower their costs. First of all,
no, but Peter, we've
birth
gone
control
through
is
this.
not- birth
The
control is
reason
not
why
insurance.
insurance
Birth
companies
control is birth
won't-
control. It's
Peter,
not health insurance.
Peter, I answered that. The reason why insurance companies do not offer free contraceptive care to clients that are run by religious institutions is because those religious institutions would go and seek out a different insurance company because they don't want to have their moral sensibilities
But wait,
tainted.
forget about the religious institutions. My employees right now don't get free birth control. And I'm not a religious institution. So Obama is saying that that I now have to provide my female employees with free birth control. I'm not doing it now. But they're saying you have to do it. So where is the money going to come from to do that? I've got to cut the salary of my workers, my female workers, so that I can afford it.
Well, I mean, listen, if you cut the salaries for your female workers, they're in the same situation at that point as they would have been otherwise, I guess, is your argument.
And
but,
you know what?
But at the
I've
end of the
got
day,
some
it
women-
costs,
I've
listen,
got women-
by the time you give them $1,000,
Hold on, let me finish this.
Peter,
I've
no,
got
let me
women
finish
that
my
work
point.
for me
Let me
that
address
that
it.
are, that
By
they're
the time you give them
postmenopause, I'm going to have to
$1,000,
cut their pay.
by the
because I'm
time
gonna
you give them
I'm gonna have to pay for their
$1,000,
birth control, even though they don't use it.
by the time,
Anyway, we'll be
by the-
back. We'll continue this discussion. You're listening to the Peter Schiff Show here at SchiffRadio.com.
To President Obama, Secretary Geithner, Madam Pelosi, and all of the socialist econ professors across America. We're sorry. We're sorry. Peter Schiff is back on the air.
This is Peter Schiff. I'm back on with Sam Sater
What the
here
fuck was
talking
that?
about free birth control. Of course, there is no such thing as a free lunch or free birth control, and there is nothing that is as expensive as what the government provides for free. Hey, Sam, I want to ask you a question. Would you concede that right now there are some women who are, when they're evaluating which method of birth control to use, let's say there's a woman who's not very sexually active. She looks at the birth control pill, sees, well, that's kind of expensive. I don't have a lot of sex. So she decides to maybe have a diaphragm or use condoms. Would you say that that's probably a decision that a lot of women make, and they opt for a less expensive form of birth control because they don't think they need the more expensive kind?
I suppose it's possible. I mean, I haven't seen the data on it. What I have seen is that 2000, the study by the National Business Group on Health, which estimates that not providing contraceptive coverage in employee health plans ends up costing employers 15 to 17% more than providing such coverage because of the health benefits, because of complications.
Employers will provide it. Sam, if that's the case, employers will provide it on their own. They don't need any encouragement
just
from
like
government
you
to save
didn't
money.
even,
But
Peter,
let me
just like you
finish the
didn't know.
question.
Hold on for a second. Just like you didn't know about that study, employers don't always have all the facts. We don't live in a perfect world
All right,
where
so then
everyone
give
has
them
the most
facts.
information.
Don't force them to do something. Let the government put out the facts and let businesses make a decision. But anyway, here's my point. If birth control is free, right? If it's free, then cost is no longer an issue, right? A woman will choose whichever kind she wants. She won't care what it costs, correct?
I believe so, sure. I mean, I guess
right.
it's a function of there's other health decisions. I mean, it's, when you go on the contraceptive pill, there's other implications.
Right, but the government, by making birth control free, price is no longer a concern. Therefore, what's going to happen is a lot of women who are now using condoms will decide that they're just going to go on the pill. And so a lot more people are going to use the pill. The cost of birth control is going to go up in this country. And, of course, the manufacturers of the pill or other methods are now going to have no resistance to raising their prices. Hey, it doesn't matter. We can jack our prices up through the roof. we're not going to lose a single customer because nobody is paying for it.
Well,
so what we're going to do is make birth control a lot more expensive and therefore health insurance a lot more costly.
No, I don't think so, Peter. I mean, in the case of the contraceptive pill, there's a lot more competition in the marketplace. You've seen the end of market exclusivity and patents on that which would prevent copycat
But that
medicine.
competition
So
is
in
going
that
to go
situation,
away when it comes to. Hold on,
no,
let me
there
finish.
isn't just
That
one
competition
birth
is gonna
control
go
maker
away
in this country,
when it comes
Peter.
to price.
Listen,
Wait a
there's
minute.
no. Listen,
Sam,
Peter.
Let me make this
your
point.
entire
You're
argument
talking about
is
competition
premised
when women are shopping
on
based on
facts
price.
that are
They
not
are no
supported
longer
by
going to
data.
compete on price.
Peter,
They will compete
Peter,
on
your
other things. Like, hey,
entire
this birth control
argument
pill really helps
is
your
premised
complexion. So
on
take this.
facts that are
Price
not
is no longer
supported
going to
by
be a
the
competition.
data.
Oh my God.
I don't know
Price
what
is
to
going to
tell
be no
you.
object.
I
So
didn't do
price
these
is going to go
studies.
through the roof.
I didn't do these studies. The reason why this is in any way a
That was
controversy
terrible.
has nothing to do with cost. It has to do with the fact that there were religious institutions that didn't want to provide birth control because of their moral
I don't care
reasons.
about the
And-
religious part of it.
Exactly.
I'm
Well,
talking
everything
about-
else is settled because we've seen the data. The
No,
data
it's
is
not
out
settled.
there. It saves money to provide this preventative care. That's the bottom
But
line.
If it
that's
was,
why.
if it was
That's
in the
why this
insurance
is.
company's interest, if it really reduced costs, they would provide it anyway.
In many instances, they do.
This is
And the
gonna-
fact of the matter is that if
Then
you've
why
got
does-
drug companies,
then let them do it.
well,
But
then,
I don't do it, Sam. This is what's going to happen, and I will make a bet with you if you want to bet me money. I will bet if this thing goes through, a few years from now, we will see. Hold on, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. We're going to see more unwanted pregnancies because people are going to be irresponsible with the pill. Because the people who don't have birth control now, it's not because they can't afford it. It's because they're probably too irresponsible to buy it. But we're going to have more. We're going to have more unwanted pregnancies. We're going to have more. Hold on. We're going to have more STDs because fewer people will use condoms. And we're going to see a huge increase in the cost of all contraception and all insurance. That's what's going to happen.
well, I think we're going to see a huge increase in the cost of insurance because just we have runaway medical costs in this country. But as to everything else you're saying, there's absolutely no data to support what you're saying. So, I mean, it may sound
Well, there's a
intuitive
lot of
to you,
data.
and you weren't even aware of these studies that show that it actually decreases costs for employers. It decreases costs for insurers.
Are
And
you talking about providing it for free, no copay, no deductible, absolutely free?
exactly.
So you get all the birth control you want. It costs you nothing.
People can look it up. It's the study by the National Business Group on Health. It was out in 2000. I think there was a report out by the Guttmacher Institute that came out I think it was last year that showed the same thing. I mean, look, we do have problems with healthcare. I'll agree with you that we have a patent system and a market exclusivity for these corporations that make pharmaceutical products that benefits these companies, and I would love to see a rollback of that. I think there are other ways in which you
What
can.
we need is a rollback of the FDA. That's what makes it so expensive to develop these
Oh,
products.
boy.
It's the FDA that drives up the costs. And you're right. We have runaway healthcare costs because the government has taken competition out of healthcare, just like they're taking it now out of birth control. The biggest winners from this bill are the manufacturers of birth control devices. That's who's going to make a fortune because now there's going to be
Well,
huge
I would
demand.
also
In
argue
fact,
that
there's
big
gonna be
winners
cottage industries.
out of this are also women who are faced with closer to $900 to $1,000 a year of cost. We're gonna see health improvements with these women, and we're
But
gonna
they're
see.
not going to get that for free. They're not going to get birth control for free. The women are going to pay for it. It's going to cost women even more for birth control when it's free because
Because his argument is that if everyone has the pill, then they're just not going to use condoms, so they're going to have unwanted pregnancies now. I mean, birth control is not 100%. Like, it's not. So, like, it's a weird argument that like people are just gonna have like rampant sex and STDs are gonna go wild because people have like unlimited access to the pill. Like, you can't just fucking have sex with just on the pill and be like, oh, everything's cool. Like, it's not guaranteed that you do that. And it's not like, it's a weird thing like, oh, I'm just going to have rampant sex because I'm on the pill. Like, what the fuck?
wages are going to decline by a lot more than the value of that birth control. Mark my words.
Obviously, this was from 2012 and 2019 now, and he's like, "Oh, I bet you later on, like STDs are gonna go rampant." Like, no, what the fuck are you talking about?
There is nothing for free.
Well, then I think
Women
then
pay for
as an
birth control.
employer, if you start to pay your women less, you're going to have a problem with the EEOC because that's not
That's
legal.
what's going to happen. And you know what's also going to happen? Some young women are going to find it harder to get jobs because employers are going to say, well, gee, if I hire this woman, I got to give her free birth control. So if it's a low salary job, I'll just hire the
Peter,
guy.
I'll tell you what,
I mean, this
if
is
you
gonna
can
create
show me
discrimination
data
against women.
of that in 5 years, if you can show me data that young women are having a tougher time finding jobs because of this birth control measure, that is actually something that, despite the fact that we have obviously different capacity to sustain a bet, that's something I would bet you money on.
All right. Well, you know, do you employ anybody right now, Sam?
I do.
All right. Well, when you hire people, is cost an issue? When you do you look at what you pay them, or do you evaluate what you'd have to
It's
pay them?
one
to hire
element,
them?
yes. Their skill set
So
and
the
what they
government-
bring
if the
to what I'm
government-
doing. There's a lot of
Right.
different things.
So
yes.
if the government makes it more expensive to hire women, if women come with a higher price tag than men, then
30 seconds.
They're going to hire fewer women relative to men.
Yes, and if
the
there was
government makes
data to
women more
support
expensive.
that assertion, Peter,
I don't
then
need
you might
data.
have an
It's
argument.
basic
But there is no
economics.
data to assert to make that assertion.
Yeah.
You don't. The
You
numbers
don't
simply
need the
don't
data.
agree
It's
with you,
basic
Peter.
econ. It's supply and demand.
I
If
understand,
something
but
is more
the numbers
expensive,
don't
I will
agree
buy
that
less
it's going
of
to
it.
cost
If
employers
it's less
more.
expensive, I'll buy more. If it's free,
It's-
like
the
birth
data's
control,
just not
I'll buy
there,
a ton of
Peter.
it.
You
I'll
can't
buy
make
birth
up
control
numbers.
I don't even need. Anyway, we'll be right back. Thanks for coming on the show. We got
Thanks
another
for having
hour of
me.
the Peter Schick Show coming up, so stick around.
That was weird. That was a weird thing.
So Lit Mobile just sent me this solar wireless battery pack. I'm excited. Let's see what's inside. I really like.
All right, Sam Cedar versus Plutocrat. STDs only went up at retirement home? Is that true? Really? They just didn't give a fuck anymore, huh?
So now what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through. This weekend I was on Up with Chris, and as many of you know, on occasion I have filled in for Chris Hayes. I've had him on this program many times. This version of the Majority Report, he claims that the first time he ever did media was on the old Majority Report. May be the case, I don't know. The point being is that I know that when I am brought on that program, often they are there's a reason. You know, being a bit of a generalist, I'm not bringing some of the expertise that some of the other guests do on that show. I am bringing the ability to talk, but they find people who can talk. And in this instance, all I was told was coming on to talk about the grand.
Well, I think I found Sam Cedar destroys Social Security hater Alan Simpson. Let's watch this one instead.
Alan Simpson, now, I don't know if he gets paid to go around doing this. We do know that he gets, somewhere around 40 grand a speech when he's charging people. And, yeah, he's an old guy who likes to fly around, feel relevant. I mean, who wouldn't want to go on The Daily Show, right? And we see evidence of Simpson trying to court the youth by going on The Daily Show and also doing a Gangnam Style parody, which we'll play maybe after this. But Gangnam Style, apparently, I mean, I've seen the video. But it is a South Korean singer who is mocking. The song is about mocking I guess Gangnam is a neighborhood, right, in South Korea, that is rather posh. So he's mocking, essentially, people like Alan Simpson. People born with the silver spoon in their mouth. Simpson's father, I think it was a senator, and so that's, we know how Alan Simpson rolls. So Simpson goes on Jon Stewart's program, and I don't think that we can underestimate the influence that Jon Stewart has on young people. So it's a great place to go if you're trying to lie to young people. And not just to reach those people, but also, sadly, to some extent, I know many of you love Jon Stewart, and I like him. I've always been a fan. But there are some areas where he's a little bit, uninformed or just not, I'm going to say uninformed. And you know what? If I was a little bit older maybe and I was making that type of cash and I'm doing a comedy show, I wouldn't spend my time necessarily getting so informed. Although, on the other hand, I don't think I could have Alan Simpson on the program if I didn't sit down with somebody who could actually tell me, like, where are the points really that this guy is selling that are bull. All right, so let's start at the beginning with this. And you should know, like I was saying yesterday, Alex Breen had a great piece about Simpson Bowls being magic. That everybody praises Simpson Bowls, and no one really knows what's in it, at least to the extent that, I'm sure they do know. But you hear those on the right praising Simpson Bowls, yet it calls for even greater tax cuts that seem to be on the table right now. Excuse me, tax increases that seem to be on the table right now. It calls for cuts in spending, all of which will shrink the deficit. And this gets back to the point that I was trying to make yesterday. The guy I was driving up to Worcester didn't know that the fiscal cliff will shrink the deficit, and that's why everybody's afraid of it. Well, so too would the Simpson Bowles plan. So it is no solution to the fiscal cliff. It is the fiscal cliff in and of itself. And Perrine in his piece pointed to, I guess it was a rather non-scientific poll, but it was in Business Insider. And presumably, right, these are the people who are really interested in the fiscal cliff. A plurality of people had no idea that the fiscal cliff will contract the deficit. There's simply a presumption that, and a mistaken presumption, that the reason why we have this financial crisis is because of the size of our debt and deficit, as opposed to our debt and deficit being as large as it is as a function of the financial crisis. And that the reason why people are afraid of the fiscal cliff to the extent that anybody is, it's because they're afraid it's going to shrink the deficit and therefore sink the economy, because austerity at a time of weak economic growth is like putting gas on that fire of economic growth? No, that's the opposite. It's bad for economic growth. Let's put it that way. And so let's go to this first clip of Simpson on Jon Stewart's show, because there's a couple of things that need to be corrected here.
So let me start with you. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, you are approached to chair a committee with Erskine Bowles that is going to set up a deficit reduction.
Yeah, the debate last night was not that good.
For the country. And you come out with your plan.
I
you
agree.
It, you're very diligent.
I don't think Bernie had a good night.
Everybody hates
to be honest.
it within 24 hours. The Democrats say it's too austere. The Republicans say you're raising taxes too much. 2 years later, as we stand on the precipice of a cliff, suddenly this plan is seen as the most reasonable thing in town, and people are coming to you to find out your sage advice. What happened in those 2 years?
Positive. Well, I'll tell you what happened. Pete Peterson sunk another several $100 million into advertising little kids. The debt is going up. Pete Peterson flying in journalists into think tank conventions and conferences and putting ads out there and encouraging business groups to, why don't you bring Simpson and Bowles in at 40 grand a pop? And of course, nobody wants to tell the truth to the American public On one side, you've got weak-kneed administration officials who don't feel they can sell Keynesian economics anymore. And on the other hand, you've got Republicans who really just want to slash government services and taxes for the rich, and they can't tell anybody about the implications.
I think I beat up myself
so that's what's happened.
enough with the hat.
And also, commentators like Jon Stewart don't necessarily do all the work they should, and so they have guys like Simpson on because he's an old coot and he's interesting. Go ahead.
Well, the people woke up. I think young people are waking up. You can't do this. You can't tax your way out of this hole. You can't grow your way out of this hole. Every economist said you could have double-digit growth for 20 years, and you can't grow your way out of this hole.
Pause it. Did you hear what he just said? First of all, the idea that we can have double-digit growth for 20 years, I don't think that's ever happened. I don't know that we've had double-digit growth. I don't know that we've had double-digit growth for more than 2 or 3 years, ever. The idea that we could not get rid of the deficit or debt with double-digit growth for 5 or 10 years is just absurd. It's absurd. Now, maybe the double digits he's talking about is something like 1.1% growth. Maybe those are the 2 digits he's talking about. But this guy, I don't know if he's just lying or he's just senile. But that's just absurd. And that would have been a really good place for Jon Stewart to say, wait, excuse me, what? You're saying that if we had 10% growth for 20 years, we would not raise enough rep? Now, I don't think it's possible, frankly, to have that type of growth, maybe even for 1 year. Because of our limited resources and just because of how astonishing that would be. But so that's his first sort of big lie that goes uncontested.
Yeah. You can't cut spending your way out of this hole. Everything we did and said, and we got 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and a range from Dick Durbin of Illinois, great progressive Democrat, and Coburn of Oklahoma, progressive conservative, and 5 Dems, 5
progressive
Republicans,
conservative, is that such a thing?
That's a supermajority. And for God's sake, the reason we were so successful is that we
supermajority? Well, sadly, the committee was not set up to ratify a proposal with a supermajority. It was set up to ratify a proposal with 14 out of its 18 members. So really, what Jon Stewart could have said at the beginning is, hey, your proposal failed. It was charged with 14 out of 18 people. There was a reason for that. You couldn't get it. Your proposal failed.
Yeah, good point with the debates. I don't know. For me, I
guess Stewart could have started this whole thing by
I'm
saying,
just
what do you
interested
mean
in
this
it, you
hole?
know. It could be
What do you mean
terrible,
by
could be good.
What
I
are
like
the
to be part of it,
implications
you know.
this hole? Good.
We were so successful is that we effectively pissed off everybody in America.
Congratulations, sir.
There you go.
Kudos to you.
Hey, you know who else pissed off everybody in America? The guy who pushed that guy onto the subway tracks. This notion of, we pissed off everybody in America, we must be doing something right. Really? Really? Just like that guy, the guy who pushed the subway, the guy to his death on the subway tracks. Probably pissed off everybody in America. Must be doing something right. All right, now we got the second clip, right? All right, let's go to the second clip.
And even in Simpson Bowles, there's a lot of talk about corporate tax rates and lowering them and making them more competitive. In my eye, corporations have had, over these last 20 years, the run of the place. They have, if you look at it factually, corporate profits are at an all-time high.
You're high, they're low.
That was a Freudian slip of
You're high, they're low.
Corporations are all-time hoes. No, but their profits are at an all-time high. Worker wages have stagnated even as productivity has gone up. So I guess I'm confused as to why we are chasing their favor when they seem to have had such a good run over these past 20 or 30 years.
Okay, great point. Now, here's where Alan Simpson starts going into complete nonsense speak. I mean, the idea that this guy is respected as a thoughtful person on this stuff is just ludicrous. He's barely comprehensible in this. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, our corporate tax rate is the highest in the world. And so...
But not actually.
Well, 36% is where we're at. What we did, we took away all of these taxes.
It is true that our corporate tax rate at 35% is one of the highest in the world. It is also true, as Stewart got to, that they don't actually pay that. They don't come close to paying that. Very few corporations come even close to paying that as an effective tax rate.
Expenditures, all of these deductions, all of this stuff, this is just earmarks by any other name, and it's spending by any other name, and it's at $1,100,000,000,000 a year. And only 20% of the American people use 80% of the stuff in that tax code. Does that give you the wake-up call of who's gimmying the system?
Right.
Okay.
But see, that brings up an interesting
And so we got rid of all of that, and we say, now give the American people from 0 to 70 grand, they pay 8%. From 70 grand to 210,000, they pay 14. Everything over that, 23. Take the corporate rate to 26 from 36, and not tax them twice when they bring it back. And when they bring it back, the Democrats...
All right, pause it. I mean, this guy's conflating so many different things here. He's talking about tax expenditures for the wealthiest individuals in this country. He's not addressing corporate taxes at all in that whole run of gobbledygook that he just laid out there. I got no problem with getting rid of some tax expenditures. Not at all. It won't happen. We also know what happens when you do that. Ronald Reagan did it in the mid-'80s. They got rid of the loopholes. They got rid of all the deductions. They dropped the tax rates. And then guess what? 2 years later, all the loopholes, all the deductions, all the tax expenditures, they came back. If you don't believe me, go Google Fred Grandy and I on Kudlow. Grandy, actually, Gopher, was in the Congress at that time, and he offered that. And now he's getting into, now what Simpson's talking about, I mean, he just seems to throw out stuff without even having it in any way contextualized. What Simpson's now about to talk about is the notion of repatriation of profits from U.S. corporations and money that they make overseas.
Says a Democrat. The Democrats will say, well, they'll just use it for dividends and to buy stock. And he said, well, hell, at least they'll be using it in the United States of America instead of sticking it over there and leaving it.
Right. Although they could also just use it for bonuses or to send it over.
Yeah, they'll do all
between
that.
you and I.
Pause it. Now, understand that the reason why U.S. businesses who are centered and based in the United States keep their profits offshore is because when they bring them back, they are subject to U.S. corporate tax rates. They are allowed to defer bringing back, repatriating these profits because of a plan that Eisenhower started, I believe it was, in the 50s, to encourage foreign investment. We do not need to encourage foreign investment anymore in this country. So the question isn't allow them to bring it back at a lower rate. So, yeah, okay, they use it for dividends and they just give it to rich people. But at least they're spending it here. Well, how about let's go back to pre-Eisenhower where they can't keep it offshore, where every year they've got to record their profits and they've got to pay a tax rate. That's not even on the table as far as this guy's concerned.
You're perfectly fine. And you're a Republican. Between you and me, they really are the crazy people in this one. Like, are they not?
No, the AARP are the crazy people.
Oh, Pete. Don't say that because I just joined. Can you stick around for a little?
Now, that would have been a great time for Jon Stewart to say, what the frick are you talking about? But he's got a comedy show, so he makes the joke and he's got to take a break. All right, so they come back from break. And this is where Alan Simpson really, he's supposedly a traitor to his class being older people, as opposed to what his class really is rich people. Continue.
Republican Party. Now, let me tell you what that is. That's like betting your country. That's really stupid. Because I'll tell you, there's a group out there that doesn't give a damn about Republicans or Democrats or presidents, and it's the people we owe $16 trillion to.
Isn't that mostly us? Aren't we the largest debt holder in our own country, the Fed?
Half of this is owned by private people in New York or Cody, Wyoming. The other half is owned by the feds, and half of that's owned by China. So that's the debt. You can't just forgive it.
Pause it for a second. Now, for those of you who
God,
are
that's an
not
insult to the
clear on
Joker.
remedial math, you can only have two halves. You can't have three halves of something. Now, if he was saying, I don't know what he's saying. He's saying half of the federal debt is owned by China and blah, blah. Let's be clear on who owns the U.S. federal debt. 19% of the debt is is owed to the Social Security Trust Fund. About $2.7 trillion. 11.3% of the debt is owed to the Federal Reserve. 8% of our debt is owed to China. 8%. 6%, almost 7%, is to those private people in Wyoming and New York. Not half. 6% is about 44% less than half. Just for those of you who aren't good at math out there. Now, this is the guy who's in charge of the so-called debt commission. Not so good with numbers, apparently. 6% of our debt is held by Japan, 3.5% by state and local governments, 3.5% of pension funds, 2.4% United Kingdom. Then you have money market mutual funds, and some more states and municipalities that get about 2 or 3% each. Some retirement funds. So he's talking out of his ass. But China, they're Chinese. So we're going to just say half the debt to China. Instead of 9%, and they're relying on our stability of our country so that they can maintain their growth and everything else that they do over there. Without a stable United States, China falls into the Red Sea or the Chinese Sea or some sea. And I'm speaking metaphorically, of course. So those people out there who are worried about the debt, I don't think so. Continue.
A Republican candidate said, forget debt. Well, I said everybody would like to, but the creditor.
Right.
And so here you have a situation where the markets are going to call the shot. They're going to say, you proved it. You're a dysfunctional government. You also proved you're addicted to debt. You're $16 trillion. You don't need a stimulus. What the hell do you think a $1.1 trillion deficit is per year if it ain't a stimulus?
Right.
It's money that you borrowed and you don't have any, it's more than it comes in. So the markets are going to crack down, and at that point, they'll say, we don't give a damn about who's out there, but I'll tell you one thing, you guys are history, but we're going to give you more money, but we want more money for our money, and interest rates will kick up and inflation will kick in, and the guy that gets screwed is the little guy, the middle class.
Let me ask you that.
All right, there he is. He's a middle-class champion, Alan Simpson. What he's saying there is, there's two basic things he's saying. One is he's saying, we got $1.1 trillion deficit, and incidentally, you'll recall that when President Obama was inaugurated, on the day he was inaugurated, the deficit was projected to be $1.7 trillion for 2009. So it has shrunk at its fastest rate over the past 3 years at any time since, I think, 70 years. Despite the fact that we haven't had double-digit growth for 10, 20 years. And this is what deficit huckery is. This is when people say bond vigilantes. This is what they're talking about. Alan Simpson is arguing that those people who are loaning us money, either the Social Security Trust Fund, which holds 19% of our debt, or the Federal Reserve, which owes 11.3% of our debt, or I guess the Chinese, which are desperately tied to our economy, and they only own 8% of our debt, are going to say, we're not going to buy your debt anymore because you're addicted to debt, and we're only going to buy your debt for a higher percentage rate. In other words, when we loan you money, we're going to require a higher percentage rate on that, and then it's going to be impossible for you to maintain your books. This is what's happened to Greece, because they don't have control over their own currency. So to buy a Greek bond, I don't know, you get a 25% return because you think they're going to default. Now, supposedly this is going to happen to the United States, but what Alan Simpson does not say, and what Jon Stewart does not say, well, then why is it that people are loaning us money on a 20-year note that, if you include inflation, actually costs them money? Right now, when the United States government borrows money on a 20-year note, if you factor in inflation, the government makes money. That's how low the interest rates are that the U.S. government has to offer to potential loaners to this country. So what Alan Simpson is talking about is a fantasy. And that's really what Jon Stewart should have questioned. I mean, of the several things I pointed out. That would have been a big one. Continue.
Get you there, but I tell you what will get you there is both sides posturing this business that if you touch the entitlements or pressure, let me tell you, health care is on automatic pilot. And the reason it will never work doesn't matter. Call it Elvis Presley care if you want to, but it can't work because there's no cost containment except down the road. So you remember the law said that the docs were making too much money, we cut them? Well, who shows up all day long at the Congress? The docs. We won't treat people, we'll do this. Well, now we did a doc fix, that'll cost us $275 billion over 10 years, and they'll never, ever reject anybody down the road. But I tell you, if you think this can work when you got to take care of a 3-year-old with a pre-existing condition to live to be 60, when one person in the United States weighs more than the other 2, that's a statistic, diabetes A and B, guys who choose to do booze, drugs, and the whole works, and you're going to pay for them. If you think they're going to go into a preventive health program, the drinks are on me. And
this guy is one of the 2 chairmen of this debt commission, and he's insane. He can't even string together a coherent sentence. All he's saying, we got to cut entitlements because you got fat people and we got 3-year-olds who got a cost containment, doc fix, and you got to do the Medicare patch and the He's going,
drinks on me.
Drinks on me. I'm already drunk. And this is where Jon Stewart has really the only thing you could say at this point.
And all the rest of it. And you got people turning, no, just 2 more.
Thank God you're a senator, because otherwise you're just a dude in a chair by the highway yelling at people.
Yeah. And I want to just correct Jon Stewart. This guy's no longer a senator. So he's just a dude in a chair and alongside the highway yelling at people.
Who you invited on your show.
What's that?
Who Jon Stewart invited on his show.
Right, indeed. And so this notion of cutting entitlements, well, there it is. I mean, that's basically what it gets down to. I rarely attribute any type of real, I don't know, personality defect in these policy things. I usually see them in a sort of broader strokes. But this guy really does think that there's something immoral about seniors not having enough anxiety in their retirement. First off, we know there was a report that came out, I think it was today, by the Kaiser Foundation on the implications, and this is something I've been saying, about what happens when you raise the Medicare eligibility age. Lifting the eligibility age from 65 to 67 in Medicare would reduce the federal spending by about $5.7 billion. This is in the first year of its full implementation. But that would be offset by $11.4 billion in spending by other people. In other words, the people who have to pay for their health insurance on the private market. $3.7 billion in higher costs for 65 and 66-year-olds, $4.5 billion from employers through company-sponsored insurance programs, $0.7 billion from state governments, $2.5 billion in higher average prices for third parties. Once these younger people are taken out of Medicare and out of that risk pool, so you increase the cost in Medicare, and you're going to increase the cost in private insurance because now you're putting older people, 65 and 66-year-olds, who are otherwise covered by Medicare, into the private insurance risk pools, and those are the people who are going to use health insurance more than anybody else, statistically speaking. So it doesn't save anybody any money except for arguably the government, but at the end of the day, you know this is going to end up costing private individuals more. And that means that our grandkids, who poor old Grandpa Simpson cares about, are going to pay for their grandparents and their parents to get health insurance when they're 66 and 65. And even insurance companies are worried about it because they're going to have to
I look terrible here.
have a worse risk pool. Now, I will say this. Consistent with what we were talking about yesterday, Nancy Pelosi came out at 3 later that afternoon and said, I am very much against
Hey, Lila, what's up?
I think most of my members are in terms
How would you?
of raising the Medicare eligibility. I don't see any reason why that should be in any agreement. So we're seeing a stiffening of the spines of Democrats, which is why old man Simpson's out there making Gangnam-style parody videos to try and appeal to kids. We'll play it. Let's play it right now.
Stop Instagramming your breakfast and tweeting your first world problems and getting on YouTube so you can see Gangnam Style.
He's dancing.
Start using those precious social media skills to go out and sign people up on this baby. 3 people a week, let it grow, and don't forget, take part or get taken apart. Boy, these old coots will clean out the treasury before you get there.
Now he's dancing again.
The lasso again, and then the horseback. Horse. Get on the ready, the cowboys ride, the cowboys ride, the cowboys.
I don't know what to tell you. That last part wasn't part of the video. That was apparently just stolen footage. I'm joking. Unbelievable. Unbelievable nut job, this guy. And you should know, when we talk about Social Security, I've said this many times before, but over 50%, we didn't have that part where he was going through, somehow we missed it. At one point during his interview with Stewart, he talks about what they're proposing in terms of entitlement cuts. And he says, we're going to make the cost of living increase more productive. And Stewart doesn't catch it, but what that means is we're going to cut the cost of living increases for Social Security. Over 50%
Yeah, I look pretty terrible.
Of Social Security recipients rely on Social Security for 60% of their income. In the second highest quintile, in other words, you divide up income for senior citizens into 5 groups. The top group, Social Security makes up, I think, only about 20% on average. For the next group, it still is the biggest source of income. And for about half of that group, it's about half of their income. And we're talking your average Social Security payment somewhere around what, $1,200, $1,400 a month. So there's nobody out there who's living high on the hog because they're getting Social Security. And so, you know, I really think if you're going to invite this guy onto your show and allow him to further his plan to reach out to the youth and get them to F themselves, you owe it to your audience to do a little more work on this. But I do appreciate you doing it and releasing the video so that I could do that work.
All right, Joe Rogan. This is a one where he talks about Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. Yeah, I was trying the purple brews. I guess I could make this one purple. I don't know, the purple didn't look right. I was looking at these references. It's like, you know, red eye, like circle around the eye, semi-closed eye, like lid above one eye. There is like some purple ones. Yeah, this one has like a closed eye. I don't want his eyes closed. Yeah, like here he has the purple. I guess I'm not gonna be that beat up. Like, yeah, this guy has purple eyes. Purple. So yeah, I already put like a dark. I'd have to go back and actually, let me see. Yeah, no blood coming out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's my reason. I'm not bleeding. I have a massively red eye, but let's see if we can make this better.
Tell you why we're going to play these clips. Okay, one, the first set of clips we're going to play because it's Jordan Peterson again, sort of like showing that the guy has not really thought out anything that he espouses. I want to say he's full of crap. I think that's legit. Also, the other thing that I think
I look terrible. Look how terrible
Joe
I look.
Rogan is the biggest podcaster in the country. I mean, not the biggest. Maybe there's one or two other, but certainly the biggest independent one. And probably the biggest one who gets political at all, right? And has the furthest reach with people who are not of this of our political ilk. And so I think he's a pretty important figure. And I think maybe on occasion one of the videos that we do he sees, but I bet not that often. But it's good if we, it's a little butterfly, the wings of a butterfly thing, right? Like a little flutter or a ripple or whatever.
It's gonna
if
be a
any
hurricane.
of this in any way, but it's good to see Rogan both thinking critically when sitting across the table from someone like Jordan Peterson. We saw him also do this with Ruben, and it's pretty funny. Good for him for having the ability to go out and be more social with them.
Ruben could learn a lot from Rogan, actually.
Indeed. And then we have another clip of Rogan, which is even better. But here, all right, so here's Jordan Peterson making his argument that all politics except for his are bad in some way. And we'll go through this. It's fascinating.
It's their moral responsibility to dissociate themselves from the radicals, just as it's the moral responsibility.
All right, pause it. So he's saying that the sane left needs to disassociate themselves, and so that's where we're picking up. Pull it back a little bit.
It's their moral responsibility to dissociate themselves from the radicals, just as it's the moral responsibility of reasonable conservatives to dissociate themselves from the Birch John Birch and Ku Klux Klan types.
That's a very important point.
But the problem, but it isn't just the moderate left's problem, because even the people on the right don't know what to point to when they say, no, you've gone too far as a leftist. Now, I've tried to, it's complicated because I think it might be more than one policy. I think the really deadly leftist presumption is equality of outcome. I think as soon as you start talking about equality of outcome, you should be put in a box and put off the shelf.
All right, pause it. So, okay. So he says the thing that makes a leftist equivalent to a John Bircher or KKK, these are the people who would hang black people for being black, okay, is the idea that you want everyone to have the same benefits in society. Now,
not to be accused of blackface? Oh, Jesus Christ, Murdoch.
Right?
You had to go there?
Because it really isn't like...
Jesus Christ.
It's the equality of outcome in some basic...
I think I should give some red to this eye, too.
Things that life has to offer you, like housing.
You won't go hungry.
Like, you won't go hungry. Everybody should get a basic minimum of food. Everybody should get be able to get a basic minimum of housing.
I think this is okay.
Have free speech, have equality under the law.
There are, and there may be differences amongst people as to what those outcomes should be. Is that really outcomes? Because it should really actually be starting at birth. So, for people. So it's not really like you go through a process and everybody wins a medal. It's just that, like, there's no process. People have medals. And it's not medals. It's really things like food or money or, and so, but there are some people who say, like, okay, there should be no difference in there's a range of stuff, right? I mean, there's a range. Okay, but just that's what that Peterson thinks is the death knell. That is the concept that there would be any type of equality amongst people that is imposed.
Freaking ads. Freaking ads.
Other than from what he thinks is the sort of the magic and the fairness of the market, which in and of itself is BS. But that's his.
Now I just look high.
Continue.
It might be more than one policy. I think the really deadly leftist presumption is equality of outcome. I think as soon as you start talking about equality of outcome, you should be put in a box and put off the shelf. But it isn't obvious why. Like, that doesn't sound like, white people overall. It doesn't have the same guttural punch that the excess of the right has.
Now, why might it be that everyone deserves health care and everybody deserves to be able to eat and everybody deserves an education does not have the same guttural punch as let's kill all the black people or send them to Africa or white people are the best or why do you think that doesn't have the same guttural punch? I wonder if perhaps maybe they aren't equally as reprehensible, even if you don't like equality of outcome, that killing people that you think are racially inferior to you or dispossessing people who are racially inferior to you is fundamentally much worse than saying everybody deserves a basic minimum. Now, even leaving aside that notion that his ideas are a little bit nuts, this is where it becomes clear that this guy is a charlatan, that he hasn't even spent 20 minutes on thinking about this stuff. Maybe he's good with whatever he does in terms of therapy. I don't know what he does in terms of therapy. But when it comes to talking about...
Just so long as a professional ethics board doesn't oversee it.
Cultural Marxism or whatever else he goes and he opines as he goes around to these classical liberal whatever shows that he does. He hasn't spent 10 minutes thinking about this stuff.
He's so slippery too. Like, he never defines what outcome means when he's talking about it.
Well, this is where he gets a little tripped up because he doesn't know what he's talking about. And here is evidence of that as Joe Rogan, in the course of the conversation, realizes, like, hey, there's a
fundamental flaw in some of your most important positions. They're irreconcilable.
This happening in universities where women outnumber men. So the men hypothetically have more sexual
All right, pause
opportunity.
it. Oh, I should tell you, they've shifted topics now. They're talking about this other thing that Jordan Peterson is really interested in, which is that there is inequality amongst the ability of some men to fornicate with women. Like, it's not distributed. As you know, he has in the past talked about perhaps we need to have forced monogamy.
Or enforced monogamy.
Yes. Okay, and here we go.
I'm not talking about myself. I get crazy town.
Women outnumber men. So the men hypothetically have more sexual opportunity. But that isn't what happens. What happens is that a small minority of men have all the sexual opportunity. A fairly large minority of men don't. The women are unhappy because they can't find a committed relationship. It's bad for most of the men. And the men who have all the sexual opportunity get cynical.
But isn't this in some ways against your whole idea of equality of outcome? Because you're talking about equality of sexual outcome now. If these men, if you have a guy like a LeBron James that's a dominant basketball player that just kicks everyone's ass, this is a guy who's succeeded at the highest level, right? Well, there's going to be people like that sexually. There's going to be people that are better at finding mates, and this is what they enjoy. They enjoy having many mates.
Yep,
they enjoy being, yes, but if this is what they enjoy, if it's a man who doesn't want a family and enjoys dating multiple women, why is that bad?
Well, I think the fundamental reason it's bad is because it's bad in the long run for children.
It's bad for children if he chooses to have children.
Yeah, well,
that
that's
makes
it.
Sense.
But that's it. That's the fundamental issue as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And I think it's the answer. Look.
Pause it. Okay, so the implication of that bad for children, I know that sounds a little bit, wait, what? I don't get it. He's saying that it's bad because you don't want children born to a father or, who don't have fathers present in their lives. Now, we should also just say that the percentage of children born into families with one parent, presumably most often the mother, has gone down. Has gone down, despite the fact that we haven't had forced monogamy. But leave that aside, because this is where it starts getting sticky for him.
Classical
where he
liberal.
starts to sort of say, like, oh, okay, so it's in this narrow case of people who are not going around, who are just having on college campuses the rampant amount of women who are having children out of wedlock.
With the one stud on campus.
With the one stud on campus. This big problem that he perceives. But, okay, but continue.
The same point guard had 10 other children in the second semester.
As far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And I think it's the answer. Look, to give the journalist credit, that is the point she was making. You know, apart from pillaring me and caricaturing my perspective, that was the point she was making. Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of unbridled hierarchies. Like I already said, that the proclivity of a hierarchy is that all the spoils go to the person at the top, and that can destabilize the whole structure.
Yes.
So we have to have a dialogue about how to rectify.
Oh my God, I forget who said it, but someone mentioned the fact that I should do Jordan Peterson as like a Muppet because he kind of sounds like Kermit the Frog. Oh my God, I have to do that. I have to make him like Kermit the Frog, but like Jordan Peterson with a suit and everything. But just like Muppet, like pop, 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 pop. Oh my God, that'd be so great. I forgot who said that, but that was a great idea.
That.
But how could you possibly rectify that if one man is, like, say if we've got
Pause it for 1 second. Did anybody else pick up on what the problem is here now? When you start to complain about a hierarchy, and in this case, he's talking about it in terms of sexual, but he's talking about generally, right? Hierarchies, where the spoils concentrate at the top. Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound like maybe Occupy Wall Street?
Sounds like see you at the demo, bro.
Does this sound to you like it's on the spectrum of equality of outcome? Because look, Jamie and I may have a disagreement. I don't know that we do, but as to what different categories where we want to see a basic minimum for people, where we want or we may disagree on what the range of equality means. Like, right? Like, you're not going to get the exact same thing as it would.
I'm surprised Sam Cedar hasn't gone on Joe Rogan yet. I'm very surprised about that. Has he ever mentioned that on like his show?
We can't live in the same house. Right? We all can't live in one house. We're not going to be able to make the housing stock exactly the same. It might be nicer to live in Florida than it is to live in, I don't know, Maine or vice versa.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not trying to redistribute the weather.
Right. Well, but the point being that if you have a problem with the concentration of something at the top, let's say like sexual prowess, or let's just say like power, or let's say like money, then guess what? You are starting to say that you want some measure of equality of outcome.
Should be put in a box.
And maybe that's why it doesn't have that same guttural punch to you as the idea that white people are inherently better than other races because you are one of us. Or maybe you haven't even thought about how having a problem with concentration at the top of your pyramid is exactly what
Maybe
people.
there's a problem with just reading some self-help books and getting freaked out about trainees on your campus turning into a whole global career.
Hey, it's not like people need food and shelter in order to live or anything. Sex is like very important.
And if you're worried about the kids living without with a single parent, maybe you should be worried about the kids who don't have access, who are living with two parents and don't have access to food, don't have access to a quality education, don't have access to higher education or health care or a myriad of other things that are unequal because so much of the wealth in this country and broadly speaking in the world is concentrated in the hands of a few. In other words, you want more equality of outcome.
Possibly rectify that if one man is, but like say if we've got one 6'5" beautiful man who's got a perfect body and he's brilliant and he just wants to date a bunch of women. And all the rest of the people are 5'1" and they're fat and they're lazy and like this guy's gonna, if this is the competition,
Pause it
he's
for 1
going
second.
to win.
I just want you to know that Matt stood up to show us that he's the tallest person in the.
6'2". Let me say, Sam Harris. That's how it's done. There's a thought experiment.
All right, continue
to win.
Yep.
There's no way around this, and even if you decide to have enforced monogamy, where it becomes a popular thing, the women are going to be more drawn to him if he chooses to date them. They might decide, I would rather have him sometimes than never at all.
That is actually what does happen.
But what is wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with it is that it destabilizes society and it's bad for children.
Right, you said that.
Yeah, but that's
what if they don't want to
it.
have children? But there's a lot of people that don't want to have children. There's a lot of people that choose to go their entire life without having children. There's men in their 30s. Some of my friends have vasectomies. They don't want children.
Mm-hmm.
So why would that help in any way, these involuntary celibates?
Well, I think you tilt the society so that it serves the interests of, well, that's a good question.
But you see my point?
Pause it. That moment when he says, I think you tilt society so it serves those who have less.
Oh no, I see.
To each their need, right? Or whatever it is.
To each from their ability, each according to their need. Oh shit!
Oh, that's a good question.
Fucked up again.
Damn it! I should have thought about this before I went on tour for months to espouse it.
Let me reset this. There's new research that actually says that children are much more upset by not having two parents than by starving. There you go.
Did he just invent Marxist-Leninism, Petersonism?
Honestly, I
That
mean,
just
like,
happened.
all right, so go back, watch that moment where he's like, that's a good question. I have gotten...
He hears himself talking and he's like, I can't say
that. Wait a second.
Want children.
Mm-hmm.
So why would that help in any way, these involuntary celibates?
Well, I think you tilt the society so that it serves the interests of, well, that's a good question.
Do you see my point? Where
I see your point. There's no doubt about it.
You're almost forcing an inequality of outcome.
I know. that was her point too. To the degree that she had a point, that was her point. Now, but it's not. It doesn't run contrary to my opinions that the issue of outcome has to be addressed. I already said there needs to be a reason for the left and the right, and that the problem with hierarchies is that they can get too steep and destabilize everything.
Right.
That does happen. That particularly happens in the sexual domain, and there's plenty of anthropological evidence for that.
There's also a lot of evidence that it's happening in the economic domain. In fact, I would argue much more evidence.
Yeah, Joe probably doesn't like that he always makes fun of Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson.
It's very possible. Yeah,
I would argue that bitches be trifling. And there's a lot of research, according to anthropology.
I mean, Joe Rogan just unwound this guy's entire shtick.
I keep fucking up all my friends when they come to my show.
What's fascinating is to see how angry he gets this thing going. Do you notice that? Like where he's like doing, like he, like
that's his fake. I'm super. No. He gets angry mainly at non-friendly female journalists. With that's his.
That was what she was saying.
No, that's his ultra concentrated.
That's what she was saying.
No,
Look
that's his like. When
there it is, right there. That's what she's saying. I'm giving you the. I'm giving.
That's
you,
also
I'm
like
I really have to concentrate.
Putting my horns out, and I'm about to headbutt you.
You know, talk about cultural Marxism.
No,
like that is literally what he just described.
Indeed.
I know who should play Jordan Peterson in the intellectual dark web movie is Matt Dillon.
There you go.
I kind of see it.
He would do that really well.
All right, and let's just play this clip, folks. You can hang on the phones, but we're not going to get to everybody, not by a long shot today. I'm sorry.
Welcome to Kohler Creek, Miles.
What's up, scrub?
Here, everyone chooses a side.
Please, guys, don't!
All right.
Bargain.
So we're going to go back to his wealthy Forbes listed plutocrat.
And the role that so-called entitlements, social insurance programs are playing in the context of the grand bargain. And when I got there, I found out that one of the guests, and I was doing like the middle segment, 8:30 or something after the filibuster reform segment, which was actually fascinating. And so the original guest who was supposed to be on with us as well, I can't remember who it was an expert on these programs, an economist. And so, but they had laryngitis, they couldn't show up, whatever it was. So I was on with Richard Arenberg, who was the author of Defending the Filibuster, who had been in the segment prior, Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, who's an MSNBC contributor, and I think she's a senior analyst at Latino Decisions and a fellow at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas, Austin, and this other guy, Don Peebles, who is the chairman and CEO of the Peebles Corporation and a member of President Obama's National Finance Committee. Now, the Finance Committee is basically, I can't remember what the Bush pioneers, or basically the guy in charge of helping raise money and then sticks around to advise on issues of money. I didn't really think much. I didn't know if there was going to be an argument about any of these. I had no idea. It didn't even occur to me. I was really very focused on making sure that I ate a piece of pastry on camera, because that apparently is there's a massive Up with Chris subculture that is focused on that. And I also I have a propensity when I see free pastry to eat it. I can't help it. So we started off with Chris going through the state of the negotiations, and this is and at one point I explained that what was really interesting in terms of what was happening is that the Republicans, their bluff has basically been called. The Democrats said, if you want to cut so-called entitlements, just tell us what it is. And the Republicans came back with, well, no, you have to tell us what you propose to cut out of Medicare and Social Security. And this is the game that the Republicans have played in the past. They get the Democrats to make a cut, and then the Republicans have run against them on that cut. And then they went to Peebles talking about President Obama's new grand bargain position. Francesca Soto talks about getting into more cuts and how people supposedly have been pulling off from Norquist. And then this is what happens. Peebles sort of pivots, and it occurred to me at one point, probably during the break after the segment, that's why he's here. Not just to pontificate on it, but he literally, this is his agenda. This is clip number 1.
The cut programs, obviously, and the Republicans don't.
Okay, we'll start that over again. So here is Donahue Peebles talking about what's next in the grand bargain.
I don't think anybody wants to cut programs, obviously, and the Republicans don't because they're now in what they consider the rebuilding mode. But, the challenge is going to be that there are Democrats. So if you take a look at some of these tax issues, for example, estate taxes, the president is not going to have unified support from the House on that issue because he's going to lose, most likely, the Congressional Black Caucus. He's going to lose representatives of farming states because it's going to decimate
It is not going to decimate.
Well, actually,
that is an absolute ridiculous.
Okay, now wait a second. Let me explain what just happened here. So Peebles, after talking about all this stuff that completely, mostly non-controversial in any way, then just sort of raises the fact that where he thinks there's going to be a problem for the president is in the estate tax. He's going to lose the Congressional Black Caucus, and we'll get to that in a minute, and he's going to lose senators from farm states because the estate tax could devastate farmers. Now, Hayes immediately says that's a bunch of crap, and it's because that anybody who spent any time looking at this knows that there were 100 families.
Is he going on more talk shows? I've just seen him on I saw him on Jimmy Kimmel. I haven't seen him on other talk shows. He must be doing. I don't know if he's doing any more rounds. I haven't seen him on Colbert, or maybe I missed it if he did.
Across the country.
But that is kind of funny because talk show hosts should be kind of scared.
It's not even remote. There will be 300 families across the country who own farms, who would be subject to the estate tax. Under President George W. Bush, the estate tax dropped to 35% after a $5 million exemption for an individual to pass on to his kids. So an individual can pass on $5 million worth of assets, and then whatever they pass on beyond that gets taxed at a 35% rate after that. President Obama wants to raise this rate to 45% after a $3.5 million exemption. Before George Bush, it was 55% after a $1 million exemption. So President Obama is taking us back to a rate that still is below the pre-George Bush tax rates. And there are some Democrats, guys like Max Baucus in the Senate, a couple other Democrats in the Senate, McCaskill, maybe Tester, maybe Pryor of Arkansas. Now, Arkansas.
Yeah, so Lila's birthday, I forgot to tell you guys. Lila's birthday is tomorrow. We're going to do, I guess we're not really going to do anything special, but we're just all going to, as per request by her, we're going to watch Sam Cedar or listen to Sam Cedar as I do some stuff. So tomorrow we'll be back for Lila's birthday. Grab your drinks. I'll be breaking my week-and-a-half streak of not drinking. And we'll have a drink in Lila's name tomorrow. So if you guys can be around, feel free to come by and we'll celebrate. He's been on Jimmy Fallon too. Oh, there's a few people in this world that I cannot even stand the sight of, let alone listen to. That's Jimmy Fallon, Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, and that's all I can think about for now. But holy shit, I'm not even gonna watch that interview. I don't even want to watch it. The dude, his whole persona just infuriates me. He's just such a weird motherfucker. Anyway.
We know why. That's where the Walton family is. I mean, we're literally talking about a tax that applies to a certain amount of, a handful of families in this country. And this guy's bringing up the Congressional Black Caucus. Of the 3,600 estates subject to the estate tax.
Oh, my God, Jimmy Fallon. Oh, God. He laughs at literally everything. Like, literally everything is like, like, I could just be like, I'm here to promote my movie. And he'd be like, oh, God, it's so terrible. Even on, like, SNL, like, he would always fucking laugh at at his jokes and look at the camera. Like, the dude just, he's,
year in the country. 3,600. 100 are classified as farming estates. The number of estates subject to the tax would double under the plan proposed by Obama. So we're talking about an infinitesimally small group of people here.
Pretty much.
And this guy is out there defending it for some reason.
Let's think about it this way. Let's look at it from African Americans' perspective. Hundreds of years of oppression. Finally, there's an opportunity to go and compete in a balanced way in this economy today. But there's a head start. And so generational transferring of wealth. And so finally now, with equality that's taken place since the Civil Rights Movement, you have a more alignment of wealth.
Do you see what's happening here? The guy is using the Civil Rights Movement as some type of fig leaf for why millionaires should retain as much wealth as possible. And I immediately go into like a complete, I'm almost jumping out of my chair at this point. Now, I should say, I didn't know who this guy was, this guy Peebles. But it turns out that I've since done a little bit of research. It turns out.
I'm not too interested in this talk. Let's see. We've watched so many of these libertarian things. Hold on. Full debate. Oh, round 2 of the libertarian professor Walter Block. I know we watched round 1. I think this is different. Let's see. It might be different. If it sounds familiar, let me know. We might have listened to it already, but
we are back.
Hold on, let's see. Okay, hold on. I want to listen to debate with a libertarian anarchist. Let's get back to it.
We may come from different places, distinct backgrounds, far-flung histories from every corner of the world. Our individuality, fantastically diverse, but our humanity, unquestionably the same.
Hey, how's it going? I was wondering if I could answer your open challenge to libertarians.
Of course. You got the phone reception to do it.
I'm sorry, what?
Of course.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I guess I should just explain my position so you don't have to guess which kind of libertarian I am. So, philosophically, I guess I'm an anarchist. I'm an atheist to the state and government in general. I just don't believe in it. And I guess politically, I'm libertarian in that I'd be willing to compromise on reducing the size and function of government to like only the things that absolutely cannot be done in any other way. Like where government, in the rare case that government
Comedy Show
is the
Friday,
optimal
nice man.
solution,
Who's
if
playing?
that is ever the case, I'd be willing to compromise until we find some better market solution to whatever that particular problem is.
Okay. And so, give me a sense of what those things are. Like, what do you think the
This one's a
government
real
is doing
libertarian.
now that could be picked up by private by the marketplace? So let's start with what one of the biggest expenditures that we have, right? So the military. Do you think the military should go away?
What, military? Did you say the military?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should be like very seriously reduced. Like maybe 1% of our current budget. If you look at just our naval fleet, I mean, I think we have something like 10 or 11 aircraft carriers, most of those being super carriers. And Russia has one, China has one, and they're like the old kind, not the nuclear ones. So I think America would be just fine. I don't think there's any real external threat to America. I think geography.
Tim
serves
Dillon, is
as
this
a
who this
natural
is?
barrier to most threats. And I
Or are
think,
you
like,
recommending
the
me
threat
one?
of terrorism is largely caused by our foreign policy in the first place. So yeah, I'd like to substantially.
Or is it this
reduce the
guy? I
budget
wasn't paying
of the
attention.
Okay, so we reduced the military. Now, the next biggest expenditure by the U.S. government, or I guess theoretically, I mean, yeah, no, it's not even theoretical by your definition, would be Social Security and Medicare. And do you think that we could do retirement insurance by the private, by the marketplace, as opposed to the government?
Yeah, so I think a better system would be, right now healthcare is.
Well, let's just start with Social Security, and then we'll go to healthcare.
Oh, I'm
sorry,
sorry. To Tim Dillon, that's obviously duh. I'm getting like so many conversations in my head right now. That's cool. Tim Dillon. I don't think I've ever heard of him. Tim Dillon. Oh, he's been on like Comedy Central. That's pretty cool.
Can you say that again? You're kind of breaking up.
Let's start with Social
You're breaking
Security, and then we'll go to Medicare.
Oh, Social Security. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my argument against Social Security is rather straightforward and simple. It applies to all government. I think in one of your videos once you mentioned that Social Security is like the best thing that government does, or maybe something along those lines.
It's been the most successful. Hold on for a second. It's been, in my estimation, one of, if not the most successful government program that we have had in terms of reducing old age poverty, and it's also one of the most popular.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, like, even if we just give rough estimates, like Social Security, that's the thing that justifies government, I guess. Just that's one example. There is actually no government program that I can point to or
Look at my face. I look
and say,
terrible.
"Hey, this government program is so great, it somehow justifies the Vietnam War or the Iraq War or, among the various wars that are going. I believe, like, the government does such incredible evil that no program that's good can ever justify the incredible evil.
Well,
Like,
wait a
if you
second.
measure
Didn't you? I'm
some
sorry. I'm
totality-
confused. Didn't you start this by saying that you're the type of libertarian who is willing to have some government programs as long as it's the minimal amount, the things that the market can't do better than government? So this. What you're talking about, your anarchism. I don't want to get in this argument about, like, you think there should be no governments, and because if they do, the amount of evil they do does not justify their existence whatsoever. But you've already started this by explaining to me that you're the type of libertarian who's willing to make that compromise and have some government. So you don't need to tell me about how you don't think there should be any government. Right now, we're discussing how you started this, which is that you think there should be some government.
Sure.
And I'm asking you, I'm going line by line as to the biggest expenditures of this government. I'm asking you. We've heard what you said about the military. We should drastically reduce it. I think you and I are at least have some measure of agreement on that. Now I'm asking you about Social Security, and your answer is not that because of what we did in Vietnam we shouldn't have Social Security. Your answer is what? Should we keep it or not?
Yeah, so I would be willing to say that, yeah, sure, let's keep Social Security, I guess, until we can find a better solution. I believe a better solution is certainly possible through the market. I think Social Security.
Well, give me a sense of what that is. It's not the 401ks, because that's been a unmitigated disaster.
I definitely wouldn't call 401k a better alternative. My view is that just through raw market forces, wealth naturally increases over time, and what we're doing right now is reducing scarcity through technology. I believe the cost of everything is going to go substantially down in the future, just through economies of scale and things like that. I think even buying a home will be pretty cheap, and I think a lot of things in the future are going to be automated. When we get to the point when we
but let's talk about until we get to the Jetsons level and all of the largest source of wealth that Americans have is their homes. So if the homes go down in value significantly, we're going to need even more Social Security, frankly, from the government. It seems to me. But so Social Security we keep. What about Medicare?
I haven't really put too much thought into Medicare. My view is that all healthcare in America is totally overpriced, and that's mostly because of government regulations.
Really?
I think
How does that work?
Yeah. I think a better model
Send
would be
me
like
on
the Surgery
Twitter,
Center of
I'm a
Oklahoma,
Gamer.
where you have like price displaying companies. Like you walk in there and you, let's say, I don't know, you need surgery on your wrist or whatever it is. And they say, okay, well, that's going to cost this amount. They don't have like this secret pricing system that depends on which insurance company that you have.
What government regulation? What government regulation causes secret pricing?
For one example is Medicare. They're very known to overpay, and all insurance companies
Actually, no.
in general.
You got to brush up on your Medicare. Medicare is actually far more not only efficient in terms of delivering insurance, far more so than the private market, but it actually is the single greatest source of any type of price controls because it puts downward pressure on prices because they can group negotiate.
Well, I don't know, because I remember watching 60 or 60/60 or whatever that show is, and this guy was getting like a scooter or something, and to buy one outright was like $200 or $300, but if you go through Medicare, it's like $1,400, $1,500 or something silly like that. Or they would even rent it.
Oh, I see what you're
saying.
saying.
Yeah, like the people who are either too fat or otherwise immobile to walk in.
Yes, if you get any medical procedures and you have insurance, private or Medicare, your prices are actually higher. That's correct. But that's all insurance. So you don't think there should be any health insurance?
Well, I know how this insurance thing works anyways, because I remember before you were required to have insurance, I didn't have it, and I would always pay a cash price. And the cash price was always substantially cheaper than what they were charging the insurance company.
How much did you pay for your cancer medication?
I'm sorry?
How much did you pay for your cancer medication?
Oh, I didn't have cancer.
How much did you pay for your the surgery that was required after your accident?
Well, I didn't have an accident.
I see. And so, what kind of things were you paying for?
Like regular doctor visits.
Do you think that you're ever going to get, maybe some major medical bill at one point in your life?
I hope not, but I certainly think it's possible.
Do you think it's probable, statistically speaking?
I'm sorry?
Do you think it's beyond possible, like probable?
Yeah, sure, it could be probable, but then it.
So what are you about in your mid-20s or early 20s?
The Surgery Center of Oklahoma. You know, I think that overall that would be cheaper than you know, this
certainly will be.
insurance thing we got going.
Or it certainly could be. How old are you?
I'm sorry?
How old are you?
How old am I? 30.
30? All right. Do you have kids
Yeah.
yet?
I didn't catch that.
Do you have kids?
Do I have service?
Children.
Children, yeah. I have 2 children.
Do you have health insurance for those kids?
Yeah, I do.
Why? Or did you? Let me ask you this: did you before the Affordable Care Act force you to?
Did I defer?
No, before the Affordable Care Act made it mandatory, did you have health insurance for those kids?
Oh, yeah, because I was in the military.
You were
That's
in the
like
military.
what made me anti-war and anarchist. I used to be in the military.
I see. And okay, but you don't have to get health insurance for them.
Yeah, but it's really cheap and subsidized. So.
But okay, but let me ask you a question: if it wasn't cheap and subsidized, would you?
Say that again.
If it wasn't cheap and subsidized, would you get them health insurance?
I don't know. Probably. I don't think I could have afforded it otherwise.
Okay, so you wouldn't have gotten them health insurance. How would that make you feel to have your kids going around without health insurance?
I'd feel pretty bad about it.
Yeah. So in other
I mean,
words,
I
the
definitely want
subsidies for the health insurance that gives you the peace of mind of knowing that, God forbid, one of your kids gets some type of disease where you couldn't pay in cash for it. God forbid that happens. They're protected now. So you start to begin to see the value of a government. And that doesn't mean that the government doesn't do bad things.
This dude has kids.
Certainly,
man.
but then I think back to why is healthcare so expensive in the first place? And I see that as a function of government. I mean,
But
that's
you
why
can't
have
explain
things
to
like
me
medical
why
tourism.
that's the case. You can't explain to me why that's the case. You can tell me that a scooter, Medicare pays more for that scooter than a cash purchase does, but a cash purchase also pays less than private health insurance.
Well, here's the thing, like with insurance in general, but Medicare in particular, when a company knows that like a big, you know, someone with a lot of money is going to make a payment here, they're gonna jack up the prices like immediately because they know that normal people couldn't possibly afford to pay like $300 or $400 just to see the doctor and get a checkup.
So are you
But
suggesting?
an insurance company certainly can.
So are you suggesting
So they'll
that
charge them that.
without Medicare, prices of medical service would go down? That's what you're suggesting.
Well, I think most of the regulations in healthcare, I mean, I think that's what causes the cost to be so high. especially,
What
like,
regulations?
even
Like you
comic-
need to clean syringes at the doctor's office? I mean, what regulations are you talking about that
Well,
raises
like,
the
I think it's a lot of the paperwork here is kind of ridiculous because that's why we have things like medical tourism. It's just cheaper to do it in other countries. And
Murdoch, this
you
is
know, like if you
Murdoch. This is Twitter, the wild, wild west of the internet. You can follow damn well who you please.
want to go to Thailand for you know, similar service, it's going to cost way more in America.
Right.
And I think that's mostly due to government regulations.
Really? But you can't explain how that's the case.
Well, there's a few mechanisms. For example, if you want to talk about like prescriptions and stuff, I believe that's, you know, caused by government and patents. You know, if people aren't allowed or legally allowed to make generic versions or knockoffs.
Yeah, I think there's something there's truth. I think there's some truth to that. But I mean, so you would, I think you and I would both agree on patent reform. That's fine.
Okay,
but
yeah.
you know
Nice,
who
thank you,
would
Bellingham.
provide
I'll check it out
patent
later.
Reform? You know who would provide that patent
even
reform,
like-
right? It would be government.
Becoming a doctor in America is ridiculous. Like the amount of money that you have to pay for college here. Well, college isn't a bubble itself. That's another topic we could talk about.
Let's talk
You know,
about
I know
Thailand for
you
a second.
talk-
You realize Thailand has a universal health care coverage scheme that is implemented by their government.
Yeah, and honestly, I think single payer would actually be better than what we have now with Obamacare. It's not ideal.
Well, I agree with you.
Just better. It's just better. That's
Right.
all I'll say.
You know who's
And I won't
promoting?
say
You know
that
who the one candidate?
optimal.
You know who the one candidate in the entire race, Republican, Democrat, anybody? Well, or there's actually two, if you want to include the Green Party, who are promoting a single-payer health care insurance. It's not the Libertarian candidate, Rand Paul. It is the Socialist candidate running as a Democrat, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see the two of them in a debate, but I'm very.
Dude,
I'm
I got
equally
news for
likely
you.
to vote for-
You're not a libertarian. You're a socialist.
Well,
And you know what?
No,
I
no, I
applaud
mean-
that.
I'm equally likely to vote for Bernie Sanders as I am Rand Paul. I mean, I think
It
they're
really
both
should
right
be
on a
more.
lot of issues.
It really should be more because you don't have an issue. You know, it's not a question of you thinking the market can do better. Why would you support single payer? That's the least market-oriented approach of healthcare, which is the largest sector of our, well, not the largest, but I think probably number 2 or 3 in terms of our government expenditures.
Well, because I think the system we have now distorts the market too much that single payer would almost be better.
Right.
Because basically
I
what we
agree.
have right now is corporatism. It's just a handout to the insurance companies who now they have all these extra new customers
I agree.
that they can
I agree.
for money.
Corporatism
So,
doesn't
I
go
mean, yeah,
away
that's
with a smaller
corporatism.
government.
Yes.
It becomes more prominent.
Single payer is better than corporatism, sure, but it's not better than capitalism.
Right.
The
And where
Surgery Center
is
of
that
Oklahoma
capitalist
is
exist?
better
Not
than-
Thailand that you're talking about, because that's a government-run healthcare. Where does that free market medicine delivery system work outside of like Somalia?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, listen, I got to go, but I appreciate the fact that you're enjoying the socialized medicine
Making a
of
beer
the
run?
military.
I need 2 bottles of tequila. I need bottled vodka. I need the most expensive whiskey they have. And that's just for Lila's birthday, dude. So if you could get me that, that would be fantastic. Thank you. You did say beer run, not fucking hard liquor run. But regardless, this is what I want. Okay, I think that cast is okay.
You deserve it, but you know what? We all deserve it. And so, but thanks for calling.
Well, no, I don't think that the military should be the size that it was. Like, I don't think I ever should have been in the military at all.
I agree.
But I just was. You know, people make mistakes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not blaming you for
I
it.
wasn't an anarchist when I signed up.
Okay.
I think the Afghanistan war kind of created that in me.
Well,
I just see government as a mostly evil. I don't see how anyone could possibly justify the existence of government after knowing all the bad things that they do.
Well, you know, government's made up of people. All of it is made up of people. And so by the same principle, people are evil. And if people are evil, then there's no point to any people. And then we're basically you got to also be pro-orb. So I appreciate the phone call.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
I mean, I agree. War is bad. And governments do some pretty evil things. And our government does some pretty evil things. There's no connection between that truth and the idea that you should then be against the government doing good things. And if you don't think that government can do any good things, you have to believe that Social Security is a bad thing. In which case, you would support the ending of Social Security, which this guy didn't. If you think that government cannot do good things, you can't possibly say, I would want single payer over a market-based system that we have now, Because by the way that you think, if the market is bad in this instance, then it's going to be even more bad if there's more of it. But I'm glad your kids have health care. I genuinely do. There's nothing that scares me more than when people decide, like, well, I don't think there should be a government, so my kids are not going to get health care. And I have, over the years, run into people like that, and it's very disturbing.
Oh, man. All right, let's see this libertarian debate. Walter Block, round 2. I think we saw round 1, so let's see if we...
We are back. Sam
see if we heard this
Seder
before.
on the Majority Report on the phone. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Dr. Walter Block. He is a economist at the business school at Loyola University, a longtime libertarian as well. Professor, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, just to catch up new listeners to this program, we had a debate, I guess now it was back in May of last year, and,
well, this was the guy who's like, hold on, Sam, hold on. This was the guy that was freaking out, wasn't it? Sorry, guys. All right, let's continue.
I want to just clear the air of one thing, and that was that I think at the time you felt that I didn't quite give you as much time as or I wasn't quite fair with doling out the time, I guess, in the context of our debate / interview conversation. And I just wanted to say that one of our listeners, whose handle is Fred at Conn College, who I think we actually may get as an intern, did a breakdown of our of a comparative analysis of talking times during our debate from that day, and we've linked to it on the site. But I think you'll find that you did okay, and I hope to provide a similar breakdown this time.
I guess for me, like, I started with politics with Obama, like what he was saying, like, actually resonated with me as a student. But like recently, I just been like, fuck both parties. Like I don't really classify myself as a liberal or any other word. I guess I would just say I'm independent. I listen to both sides. It's just like Republicans are just so socially backwards, dude. Like they use religion to govern. Like they're just like backwards on social issues. Like they got to catch up, man. If you're still against gay marriage nowadays, like, dude, like, come on, get over it. Like fucking, but they won't. They will use religion as a scapegoat. Be like, oh, it's my religion. That's why I have to hate gay people. Like that to me doesn't interest me as a voter. I'm not gonna vote for someone that's like still has the ideology. And second of all, like the fucking idea of separation of church and state. Like, do you not understand that concept? Like, do not establish a religion, period. But they just don't know how to do that. Like, I don't get it.
I really have no problem. If I thought I was being treated vastly unfairly, I wouldn't be back on your program. So I guess my own comfort level is, more formal. You get 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes, you get 3 minutes, I get.
Oh, this is the guy. Like, don't interrupt me, say.
But I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And in retrospect, I don't think I was really dealt with unfairly. And as I say, if I really thought that, I wouldn't be here now. So, no problem.
Great. I'm glad that was your feeling. Now, I want to start off with a question that has actually been posed by a listener of this program who calls in quite a bit, and he is a bit of a self-identified libertarian. And
wait, hold on one second.
Well, I'm the Joker, baby.
he had a question for you, which I thought was a good way to start off, just so that, because one of the challenges I've had with taking phone calls from libertarians is that maybe every is an exaggeration, but nearly all libertarians who call into this program say that the other libertarians who have called into this program are not really libertarians. And so the question that he poses is, what's the difference between consequentialist and deontological libertarianism, and which one are you?
Right. The joke among libertarian circles is if you get 10 libertarians in a room on any given issue, you'll have 11 different opinions. Another one is organized libertarians, sort of like herding cats. It can't be done. I'm a professor. I'm never supposed to answer questions exactly or on point, so let me deviate a little bit from your question, although I will answer it. There are 4 kinds of libertarians in my view, and deontological versus utilitarian or consequentialist is only is sort of a different dimension of distinction between libertarians. The main differences, as I see it, between libertarians is there are 4. The first one is anarcho-capitalist, of which I'm one, and we say that the essence of libertarianism is the non-aggression principle. Keep your mitts to yourself. Don't invade or aggress against anyone else. And since the government necessarily does it, we're all anarchists. The second group, and I guess the most famous people there would be Murray Rothbard. The second group would be minarchists, minimal government libertarians, and most famous people there would be Ayn Rand and Robert Nozick, and they also adhere to the non-aggression principle, as do all libertarians, but I don't think they're as logically consistent. And what they say is that we should have minimal government, and the government should just have armies to keep foreign bad guys off of us, police to keep local bad guys off of us, and courts to determine who the good guys and the bad guys are. The third group, and I'm in descending order in terms of purity in my view, the third one would be constitutionalist libertarians like Ron Paul, who believe in the U.S. Constitution, and I would even include Rand Paul in this too. And pretty much anything the Constitution says is what libertarianism is all about. And the fourth group I would call classical liberals, Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek. Those people certainly agree with minimal government, night watchman libertarianism, but they would add more. Welfare programs, vouchers, other things like that. So that would be the 4 breakdowns. So if you heard from any one of those 4, the other 3 would say, well, he's not really a libertarian. Whereas in my view, they're all libertarians. Libertarianism is a many-splendored thing. There are many mansions, and I'm a big tent kind of a guy. Now, to answer your question finally, the difference between consequentialist and deontological libertarianism is a consequentialist is sort of like utilitarian. What the consequentialist or utilitarian libertarians say is, if you follow the non-aggression principle, that's the route to human happiness. We'll all be happier if people keep their mitts to themselves and government is either non-existent or very limited. Whereas the deontological libertarians are much more logical. It's not that the other people are illogical, but it's based on logic. Namely, we deduce from the non-aggression principle plus homesteading for private property rights, and wherever that leads us, even, justice though the heavens fall, we don't care about utility. We only care about rights. So the deontological libertarian would talk about rights, and the utilitarian or consequentialist libertarian would talk about human happiness also as emanating from the non-aggression principle.
And you are a consequentialist, is that it?
No, I'm a deontological libertarian, and I'm also an anarcho-capitalist. So there are 2 different dimensions, so to speak, and those are my 2 positions.
So let me ask you about this. I mean, just in terms of the non-aggression principle, how in the world that you imagine, how does one maintain property rights?
Well, in my view as a anarcho-capitalist, there would be private defense agencies that had police forces or armies, and if you stole my wallet, for example, let's say, and my wallet is legitimately mine, I would call the police. I would call the private police agency, and they would come get you and, you know, make you disgorge the wallet and punish you according to libertarian punishment theory. If I were a minarchist, I would just call the government and I'd say, hey, Sam stole my wallet. Go get him. And if Sam said, no, I didn't really steal it, then we would have to adjudicate it through the court.
Now, so well, okay, that raises a couple of questions for me. I mean, the first being that, I mean, who gets to determine if you're not a minarchist or the
minarchist?
A minarchist. If you're not.
Oh boy, my power just flickered. I'm a little worried. I don't know if it's a good idea to continue streaming. I don't know, guys. I think the power might go out. It's like raining really bad. You know what, guys? Let's continue this tomorrow. I'm sorry for ending it so abruptly, but it is fucking pouring out, and then the light just like didn't flicker, but like it like dimmed a little bit. So I think it's best that we end the stream here. Sorry for being so abrupt, but tomorrow, everyone come back for Lila's birthday. We're gonna have a stream. We're gonna have a hangout. We're gonna have a beer, drink some shit, and we'll celebrate her B-Day tomorrow. And we'll continue with Sam Cedar videos because that's what Lila has here. Yeah, you guys have a storm there as well. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't know if we're gonna lose power, but I'd rather end it now than, you know, power going out. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. For Lila's B-Day, and we'll keep going. We'll listen to this libertarian video, and then we'll listen to more as per Lila's request for her birthday. I'm gonna grab some drinks for tomorrow, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace out.